my general advice to all my clients and friends was like, let's go into the role and keep the role narrow. And let's think 3, not 1. And again, I don't know if that's right or wrong. My instincts say that this is probably the better approach.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brittney. I'm the VP of Client Success at SphereRocket Virtual Assistants. Our company helps business owners create leverage within their business, basically so that they can focus on doing the things they do best, creating more revenue, spending more time with their families, all of those things. And we help with training and placing virtual assistants.
Brittney's been helping me. She's been coaching me on my 3 hires, and then she's going to be helping me on my 4th and 5th hire in this debate about what I'm going to do. But I didn't know that she also runs a training in the SphereRocket group. So can you tell them, everybody, because that was the topic that I was most interested in. Tell us a little bit about what training you are doing for the SphereRocket clients and VA community.
Yeah, great question. So I run an operations coaching call on Friday, and that can really be any and all things business operations related. So basically, all of you that are wonderful at being visionaries and all the ideas, things that you want to do for your business growth are always excellent, but sometimes not going to be the best at the operational administrative side of things. So I basically talk with our clients on those calls about how to create systems and processes for all of those wonderful ideas that you have.
Yes, that is the area that I know for me and pretty much 90% of my clients, we need way more help. And guys, I asked Brittney, we can open up a conversation and talk a little bit about what is the role of an operations manager? What are some of the skills that we want to make sure we're looking for? How does it work? There's the virtual, there's the in-house. It really doesn't really matter. We really just need to get some clarity. And so maybe we could start with the one question that I asked another gal who's an operations manager. I said, what do you think is the difference? And we'll start here, Brittney, is what do you think is the difference between an ops manager versus an executive assistant?
Yeah, great question. So an ops manager, this can vary depending on where you're at within the business, of course, but someone who's more of an operations manager is going to help with creating and refining processes within the business. Even when I say creating processes, if you have something that you do and that's intuitive to you, that you can go and do and no problem execute that task, it might not currently be something that exists within an SOP format for other people to be able to follow. So let's say that you tell somebody to go do that task that you normally do and you think it's so super simple and easy, and you just go tell an executive assistant to do it. One I see a lot is managing your email inbox, right? Exactly how you're going to respond to every single email that comes through. And that's something that an executive assistant can do once they've worked with you on what that looks like. But if you have an operations manager, this is somebody that can come in and they can say, okay, how can we email inbox might be a little bit small scale for an operations manager, but they can come in and create a process out of the things that have become intuitive to you and install those for the rest of the business. Does that make sense? Does that answer?
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying. So the expectation with an ops manager versus an executive assistant is that the ops manager is going to build a strategy, build a system, versus maybe an executive assistant might be like, help me run this, manage it. And you probably would be responsible for bringing the system to them, as opposed to an ops manager is going to say, let me build the system for you. Is that a safe assumption?
Yes, correct. Giving somebody the process and saying, you're going to execute this process as I've outlined, versus somebody who's more of an operations manager, it can create the process for you out of something that you're already doing. Or even if you're saying, I want to do this better, how can we do that? Looking at what you're doing and refining.
Hey, a quick pause for my sponsor. I'm sure you've noticed that my YouTube channel has fundamentally changed dramatically. Thank you to my new sponsor, SphereRocket. What I'm about to share with you isn't just another VA service. Now, here's the problem with traditional VA companies. They're charging $1,700 to $2,000 per month. And what they're doing is they're hiring a $4 to $5 an hour and pocketing the difference. difference. SphereRocket has completely flipped that model. They help you hire your VAs directly. So you're in control and you just pay SphereRocket a flat fee for their recruiting, their coaching, and their support services to you. I now have 3 VAs on my team and I'm going to 5 and I'll probably go beyond that. These are professionals who are working hard with a lot of experience. I've interviewed Brittney, who is my SphereRocket coach, and she's been guiding me through my first hires, helping me through the process and checking in with me on a regular basis. And there's tons of weekly live training, not only for us leaders, but also for the VAs, for them to improve what they're doing and how they're helping you. When you sign up using my link down below, you'll get access to all of my digital marketing library SOPs. And I'm also offering a weekly live training for leaders who want to build their digital marketing team, and doing training for the VAs on how they can serve you better. One of the things I absolutely respected a ton, what they basically said, we will give you a 45-day trial. You don't have to pay Sphere anything for 45 days, and they'll help you hire your first one. And then only if you're satisfied on the 45th day does their service fee kick in. Use my link down below. That supports me, and that can get you all of my digital marketing SOPs. And I can't wait to hear about how you're using this service to build your team.
Yeah. The gal that I interviewed, I think it was Mia, her skill sets, when she showed how she built Monday.com and how she built this kind of project management software, and then it was her bringing it, organizing the team to it, and then getting the team to build their project software management systems. And in my mind, I was like, oh, that's a big distinction. And so can you talk a little bit about what the expectation would be in terms of building the system for the team, as opposed to most of my clients right now, when they're working with their VAs, is they're like, they feel obligated that they need to be the one that creates the system. And so versus that the person actually brings the tool and then starts to build the system for them. Is that a clear distinction? And can you talk a little bit about what that means and how that works?
I would say that can also depend, right? If you're saying that somebody has to bring the tool for it to be considered them creating the system, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. For example, if you use Asana and you just feel that you're not using it at the full functional capacity that it could be, and you're saying this operations manager needs to create systems within Asana, they can still do that. They don't necessarily have to bring the tools. If you don't have tools that you like already, I've seen clients say, I don't really have anything that I like that I'm using, and so you tell me what's worked in the past. But if you have systems and softwares and things that you need them to operate within, that's something that they can also do. As far as taking the skill set that you're mentioning, they're going to be able to evaluate what you're currently doing, and again, either turn it into a system if one doesn't exist already, or find the gaps in the current systems and repair those and refine those. So something they're going to need to be able to do is evaluation, being able to problem solve, and basically dive deeper into that problem solving ability. So they're going to want to be able to ask a lot of questions. They're going to need to be proactive as well, because sometimes you'll find with an executive assistant, for example, is they're going to keep doing a process even if it's taking an extremely long amount of time, even if the process might be breaking, instead of going back and saying, this is making it challenging every time because there's been a software update, whatever.
Yeah.
The ops manager is then going to be able to see, especially as the business grows, you see this more as the business grows, where the process is breaking and how we can fix that. So they're going to need to be able to assess for those gaps.
I would say that's probably the big divide between a general executive assistant versus someone who has the skill sets of an operations manager. Is they actually will go find the problems in the system and then help correct them and fix them and make them more scalable, more efficient, right? That's a pretty big distinction between just, I have someone who can do the task and get it done versus someone who can help me build it and make it and scale it.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. What is the cost difference? And in the virtual staff, and again, I selfishly was saying to you, I feel like this is something that I'm going to need to have. What are you seeing in terms of the cost? And then what are some of the qualities and the characteristics of the type of person that I would be looking for to be able to make that happen?
Well, as far as qualities and characteristics, a lot of the things you want, you mean in the interview process? Is that what you're talking about? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as far as those things, I'm going to ask them problem solving questions. Give me an example of a process or a problem that you've solved for in a previous role. Tell me what the problem was. Tell me how you identified it. Tell me how you solved it. Have them walk you through how they were able to actually solve for a problem. Those are ways that you can assess for those, because somebody who's proactive and has really strong problem solving abilities is going to be the most important thing that you're looking for with that hire. So asking questions around their problem solving skills, past experience. It doesn't have to be a perfectly transferable example to your business, but I want to see how their thought process works. And I want them to be able to verbally walk me through how they've been able to solve these problems.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot the other part of your question.
No, that's 100% on point. Yeah, one of my favorite analogies in the hiring process was, you present the person a problem and say, how would you solve that? Mm-hmm. But really, in this case, I'm looking for someone who has solved problems, and then they can walk me through the process of how they did that. What is the cost? If I wanted to hire an operations manager in the virtual space, what type of dollar per hour am I looking at?
This is also going to be dependent on the level that you think that you're going to need them to come in at, right? So you are looking for somebody who has maybe just some operations like admin or operations coordinator experience. You have a general idea of what you're doing. They're just jumping in. They might be on the lower end of the operations pay, but if you're looking for like a true like COO type role, of course that can be on the higher end of the scale. And you can even just think of that and compare it what that would look like in the US, what that pay gap is going to be. A good rule of thumb is 4 to 5x more is what we're making in the US, right, than what they would be making there. But usually for these really higher end roles, I'd say a true COO could be up to $20 an hour, but that would be like somebody who's managing very large scale teams. They've maybe worked in corporations before and they've done things at a much higher level. Yeah. Most people who are at the level, say for real estate teams, things like that, I'd say you could do somebody who's maybe at that $8 to $10 per hour range if they're still going to be creating all the systems, leading the teams, and even sometimes below that. It can be, I would say 6 to 8 is probably about normal for a normal operations VA, but depending how much higher scale you get up, how big the team is, how big the problem are they're solving, I can see up to $20 an hour.
Yeah, that's was my instincts, was somewhere in that 8 to 10. Because it's like, for me, I have 3, but really I disorganized, and I'm noticing that my schedule. And then when I was interviewing this operations manager, she was like, yeah, I basically take the CEO, me, and she's all, I move him over here, and then I basically am the main point of contact. And then she was building the systems and then managing the team and then managing a bunch of cool stuff for him. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I want one of those. Like, how do I get one of those like right away, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a COO at Sphere Rocket. His name is Arzen, and he works alongside our on-site CEO, Shireen, who's also in the Philippines.
Right.
And between them, they have a team of over 100 VAs that we have in the Philippines. So if you have somebody that's managing teams at that scale, you're probably going to want to pay them a little bit higher, right? Sure. They also have kind of operations coordinators below them who are managing sub-departments. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean as far as it. You're going to want to think about the size of the problems they're solving and the size of the teams. Yeah,
that makes perfect sense too, right? Yeah. So for me, probably my next major goal that you and I will be discussing is getting me to 5. And I'm just trying to think through, okay, I have the 3 roles, but I really need to get 2 more roles. And would you say that for me at this scale where I'm going 3 to 5, should like one of those become an operations manager that helps me to organize the other 4? Would that generally be the right advice?
Yeah, I would say generally speaking, especially for you are such a visionary type person we talked about at the beginning where we're going.
I'm horrible at the, systems and the disciplines of the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. And the more people that you have, which now you're at 3, like we talked about, you have things that need to be systematized a little bit more. And you need to make sure, let's say, I know that all 3 of your VAs right now are great, but let's say something did ever happen and you have to replace one of them resigns, whatever. Or even your team expands further and they're delegating their systems. You want to make sure the things they're doing now are systematized so that they're not things that you have to go back and start from the beginning. So
yeah, that's actually my biggest concern right now is I've built some pretty good processes for all 3 positions and they're starting to develop, but I'm not actively involved in how they're being developed, where they're being stored. And I'm starting to feel very nervous about that, because if they go away, then all of a sudden I'm going to be like, oh man, now I got to almost start over.
And so even having a process for creating those SOPs, where they're stored, a process for making sure they're updated, right? Because if you have an SOP and then of course, as you make those changes to the process, if those don't get updated, then you're even just going backwards in the implementation if you ever need a replacement.
Yeah. That's my concern at the moment. I'm starting to feel the fear of that, right? Because as the team is building some momentum and I want to like add layers to new projects.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly, making sure that all those things are organized, because you may have given them those initial instructions, but if you're not keeping track and making sure that those have continued to be documented and that what's happening in the day-to-day.
And I'm not.
Yeah, then you want to have somebody else who can do that for you. And having somebody who can be the person to slow down and do those things for you so that you can keep the business moving forward are really important.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the free coaching advice, because it sounds like that should be my next hire, really.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
We'll
All right.
get a call on the books to.
Yes, I know. Yes, exactly. Good. Questions from the group, guys. Is there any questions that you have for Brittney in terms of operations manager? I've got lots of different people on the call who have varying degrees of teams and or admin teams, or just still in the solo entrepreneurship location. So if there's anything that you guys want to bring to the table, please let me know. Yes, Julia, who needs an operations manager, my favorite, one of my favorite clients right here.
So I'm in the process of hiring a replacement VA. I was pretty happy with many components of the previous one, but the work ethic and missing days was a problem. So now I'm looking into separating the roles. Patrick and I were discussing different tasks and maybe starting with 2 or 3 VAs in different roles, like digital marketing and admin, and then finally moving, or maybe transaction coordination. So do you recommend that, having, let's say, 3 part-time VAs and moving them towards the full-time before I am ready to get the operations manager?
Yeah.
Let me ask that, because let me ask the question, I think, just in the way that I hear it. As Julia was talking, I was thinking about her, is should she hire the operations manager first and then have the operations manager help her to get the other roles filled, or should it be the other way around? I think that's probably, is that a fair assessment, Julie? Because that's what I started thinking about when I was listening to you. What are your thoughts about that, Brittney?
I'd say it depends on where you're at with your current systems and processes. If you have systems and processes in place that these people in each of these buckets could follow, then you could go ahead and get those roles filled, because your operations manager might not be able to do your transaction coordination, but they might be able to create the process for it if it doesn't exist. Even if you have somebody who has the experience and you need that job done right now, and they're going to be able to jump in and follow the direction that you give them right away, great, then we can get that role filled. If you need somebody to take over your social media posts and you have a general process for what you're doing right now and they can follow that, awesome, you could go ahead and get that person. But then you're like, okay, now I need this to make sure this work stays consistent and that it's followed moving forward, and I need somebody to oversee that process is being followed, then I would hire the operation person. But if you can continue doing those things yourself for now, and you want the systems and processes created first, then you could hire the operations manager first.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a tricky question, but yeah, interesting.
It depends on what the main goal that you're really looking to achieve first. If you need those tasks off your hands right now, finding somebody who has experience and can jump in and complete those tasks is a good place to start. And then we can work on creating the systems after they're being executed.
Yeah, that's fair. Just to give some more context to this quick, and then let's get some other questions. But she has a property management business. She's a broker, and she's a high performing listing agent and sales agent with quite a few different systems that are running and operating. There's a lot going on, a little bit more than just the typical realtor. I think that's probably why it becomes an interesting topic.
Brittney, super quick, like how long would it take in your general experience, for the operations manager to really set up and get to know your business if you have
Good
someone?
question.
If you have some of those things, each person is different, right? So of course, there are still going to be some people that are just faster than others. Those are things that you can also ask about in your interview, as well as talk to me about, tell them where you're at in the business. Hey, I have some systems and processes in place, but this is where I'm at. This is the timeline I'm looking at for the person that I hire to be up to speed. You have any like similar experience you can talk to me about in how you were able to complete smaller tasks in a similar deadline? And see if they can give you a relevant experience. Oh, in my last job, I took over a new department. It took me about a week to go through what their processes looked like. And it took me about a week to build out the SOPs, whatever. So that's probably a shortened amount of time, to be honest with you, a week, but you see what I'm saying? They have them walk you through what their timeline typically looks like for getting up to speed.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a really good question in the interview process.
Hey, a quick pause for my sponsor. I'm sure you've noticed that my YouTube channel has fundamentally changed dramatically. Thank you to my new sponsor, Sphere Rocket. What I'm about to share with you isn't just another VA service. Now, here's the problem with traditional VA companies. They're charging $1,700 to $2,000 per month. And what they're doing is they're hiring a $4 to $5 an hour and pocketing the difference. Sphere Rocket has completely flipped that model. They help you hire your VAs directly. So you're in control and you just pay Sphere Rocket a flat fee for their recruiting, their coaching, and their support services to you. I now have 3 VAs on my team and I'm going to 5 and I'll probably go beyond that. These are professionals who are working hard with a lot of experience. I've interviewed Brittney, who is my Sphere Rocket coach, and she's been guiding me through my first hires, helping me through the process and checking in with me on a regular basis. And there's tons of weekly live training, not only for us leaders, but also for the VAs, for them to improve what they're doing and how they're helping you. When you sign up using my link down below, you'll get access to all of my digital marketing library SOPs. And I'm also offering a weekly live training for leaders who want to build their digital marketing team, and doing training for the VAs on how they can serve you better. One of the things I absolutely respected a ton, what they basically said, we will give you a 45-day trial. You don't have to pay Sphere anything for 45 days, and they'll help you hire your first one. And then only if you're satisfied on the 45th day does their service fee kick in. Use my link down below. That supports me and that can get you all of my digital marketing SOPs. And I can't wait to hear about how you're using this service to build your team.
Do you think that going back to hiring labs and Kathleen's system, is that something that could work in conjunction with the VA and the operations manager? Because she has some direction in terms of, do you know what I'm talking about? The interviews that we've had with Kathleen?
Yes, we've got, it's a good question. And so let's ask Brittney for a hot second though, because so in terms of additional resources from Sphere Rocket to help the VA with a traditional real estate agent's business with systems, I've never really looked under the hood. Is there a lot of kind of SOPs and processes that we can access? I have a good friend, Kathleen Metcalf. She was an executive assistant. She's built a lot of systems for agents. And Nancy, who's here, she has all those systems and she paid for those systems to be implemented into her business. And for both parties, do you think that having this external kind of advisor SOPs would be a good decision? And or also, what does Sphere Rocket provide in terms of those services? I've never even looked.
Yeah, we have a lot of pre-recorded course material. We also have those live coaching calls that you can attend. So we have mine on the client side, but we also on our VA side, our COO VA that I mentioned has a coaching call as well. So if you say, hey, this is something that I want you to do, and you attend the coaching call with Arzen and get some help with that, those are some things that we can help with. As far as if you already have systems.
So Arzen does the VA facing, go to his training. Is his weekly like yours?
Yep. It's actually, I believe it's on Fridays at noon.
Okay.
Noon Central. Mine's at Fridays at 11. So I just had the call right before this.
Gotcha. And so you're with us and then Arzen is with them.
Yep. And the VAs can attend my coaching calls as well. We ask the clients don't attend the VA coaching calls, but I don't mind if the VAs ever attend mine. Either way, we have a ton of pre-recorded resources and things like that they can reference. As far as for somebody else, the systems and processes that you could use, that can certainly be helpful as long as, you know, you're open to implementing those things. Sometimes what I'll see is a business owner will have these resources from somebody else and they're like, oh, I want to do things this way. But then when the operations manager or whoever comes in to implement are resistant to making any changes that are recommended in those systems and processes. Oh, I don't do it that way. And they try and cherry pick the things they want to do. That's where it can take a little more time. But it depends on how installed those are into the business. And if you're willing to say, I want it set up just like this, we can break things, we can mess things up. I want it set up like this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's funny. I was talking to Nancy and Lydia because Nancy hired Kathleen's team. They implemented the system with her great executive assistant. Then that assistant went away. Then the next one came in and was like, I don't like any of those. And so it fell apart. And then now we got Lydia, who's awesome. And Lydia is, oh my God, these systems are amazing. Now Lydia is excited about implementing those systems into Nancy's business. So yeah, you can see that that's an interesting process. This was helpful. I got some value out of that for me. So thank you.
Is there like a certain amount of hours that you have to hire a VA for, whether it's part-time or full-time?
Yeah, we always recommend at least part-time, doing like 15 to 20 hours per week. And then full-time, that's at your discretion. If you want to give them overtime, that's fine. There's not necessarily a limit as long as it's agreed to. When you're hiring part-time, I just advise that sometimes they are probably going to have to seek other work. And so that limits the availability. Even if you're saying, I'm only going to pay you for 20 hours of work, they're probably only going to be available during set time intervals. Whereas if they're full-time, you might have a little more flexibility with that. So that's what I like people to consider when they're saying, should I do full-time or part-time? If they go part-time, they may take on other client work. And then if you want them to go full-time, they may not be able to. So
yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think the expectations is that if they're good, they're going to seek opportunities and other opportunities, just like any other employee would in the world. It's just harder for us to identify that. So I think it's really upon us to do a good job in the interview process, make a good offer to them if they're part-time, with the goal of getting them to full-time, knowing that if we leave a talented person in the dangle just out there, they're gonna get other better offers. And so, and that's just normal in it doesn't matter if that's virtual assistant or if that's in-market assistants or team members, but that's something that us leaders have to be aware of. And our job is to continue to find the best talent, bring them in, establish a strong role, get a good relationship, and move them into your organization as a high influencer. Yeah. So something else, Dee, that you wanted to say? And then I
just wanted to ask, so just so I understand how this works. And you mentioned people being transaction coordinators, social media managers. Is there someone that can do both?
Potentially. Again, those are different skill sets, but you can always post the job listing for those things. Sometimes you're going to find a unicorn person who can do all the things you want them to do.
They really specialize in certain things.
But what I say is just keep in mind, if you're willing to teach on a process, then that's something you can do. As long as they're willing to do it. If they don't have that experience, you can always teach on certain processes. So there's that to keep in mind as well. You would just want to prioritize the things that are most important for you to find that they know how to do. And then if you're willing to teach on the others, then you can do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, my general advice to all my clients and friends was like, let's go into the role and keep the role narrow. And let's think 3, not 1. And again, I don't know if that's right or wrong. My instincts say that this is probably the better approach. And the reason why I'm a big fan of Sphere Rocket is because of the way that they set up their business model. It's for us really to get to 5. There's one contract is 1, and then the second contract is up to 5. And then the third contract is up to 25. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the way that they set up the business model. But I have a lot of clients right now, Brittney, you guys know this, and a bunch of you guys know this. A lot of my clients have, got one full-time VA with one of these other services, and they're paying anywhere between $1,900 to $2,000. And please know, the company is taking $1,300 of that, and you're getting a $4 to $5 an hour person. If you're gonna hire one, Sphere Rocket at $600, they only take $600 for all the services. You negotiate with the VA separately. Even if you did get the $5 an hour high quality person, you're still $1,300 versus $19,000 to $2,000. So just be aware of that stuff. It's one of the reasons why I was a fan. But again, for me, I want us to build a team, not try and find one unicorn. And some people have found them. They're there. There's plenty of really great individual VAs become really cool pillars to a lot of real estate agents' businesses. And so it is exciting to see, but my thing is, let's build a team. Hey, Brittney, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that. And I think I made my executive decision talking to you. I need to get one of those COOs or right away, and have an awesome one. See you guys.